Aloha kakayaka e Hawaii. This is Paul Kalainui, and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. Today is the 5th day of August in the year 2012. We are produced by the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation. The opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of this radio station, KWAI, or of the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation. Welcome to the program. We had 2 hours of programming last night in which we spoke about the resolution dealing with the continuing commitment of Hawaiians towards self-determination. Basically, the right of our folks to choose between integration or independence. And so we discussed what is Hawaiian, where did the folks come from, and is that something that we really need to resolve in terms of this particular resolution, which is anticipated to be filed at the United Nations. What about the term Kanaka Maoli, and what is a root meaning of that term, and should it apply to all of the native Hawaiians today, or is that an abuse of the underlying meaning of the term Kanaka Maoli? And the term Hawaiian, where did that come from? And how is it that it applies to all of these, the people of all of these islands now known as the Hawaiian Islands, which was previously known as, was under some other name. One of those names would be, what was the name? Namoku o Keawe, as an example. And there are other ways of referring to these islands. So we engaged in some of that discussion. We also talked about mental health and the propensity of people to remain in denial, or to justify, or to find ways of not conceding to the illegalities, especially as it regards Hawaii, of the fact of the American invasion, overthrow, and the inappropriateness of the cession of Hawaii to the United States. And so we went into that discussion. There were 3 points in that discussion that I thought were very significant. One was, basically it was these these elements within anxiety that people sometimes suffer. So, especially among white persons who suffer from these anxieties, it can be, deconstructed into 3 areas. One being denial, the second being projection, and the third being rationalization. And so we discussed some of those terms and how it is matched by what we see in the public discussion of Hawaiian independence and the right to attain our self-determination. We also talked about the Olympics, and it's my opinion that it's been too highly politicized, highly nationalized. It's based on, or too much based on, the concepts of domination, individualism, and exclusion. And we saw that in Barack Obama's presidential address to the people, in which he began saying that I choose to leave the issues of political debate out of this address, and instead I want to address the accomplishments of the U.S. team and the medals that they have gathered, and praise them for their accomplishments, and anxious to see them come back home. And so it was sort of like a cheerleader for a national team at the Olympics, and it was, at least my opinion, that he, like too many others, especially the large media folks, missed the whole point. Instead of valuing the purity of athleticism and the accomplishments that these people have succeeded in developing their physicality to achieve such a tremendous feat, and appreciate that for what that is, rather than playing the game of national politics or loyalty and allegiance and pretense that it is only because of this set of principles that our country is led that we were able to win the swimming meet or the gymnastics or things like that. And then it becomes now a competitiveness in terms of who has more prizes, etc., rather than elevating the accomplishments of these athletic individuals. And finally, what else did we talk about? Well, I think I covered most of the issues, and I sort of made some suggestions or laid some of the discussions that I had with Teach for America core group. These are the people who, I guess, design curriculum, make assignments, do the hiring, and so they are the people in back of this larger Teach for America group, and they had visited us or visited at Halinao-Pono over the past week, and trying to get different ideas from people, I guess. And so my comments shared with them, talking about the idea of Teach for America here in Hawaii. Is that not just another colonial attempt at bringing about the cloning of Hawaiian youths to become Yankee clones, and to what extent that criticism is valid, and to what extent is that criticism invalid. So it was that kind of discussion, and then moving into series of behavior modification, behavior controls, and other things like that. So generally, those were the comments made last night. We had some telephone calls. If you would like to call because you were not able to call last night and pick up on some of these discussions, I would be more than happy to entertain your telephone call. Our telephone number here is 524-1080, and should you wish to pick up on some of these strings of discussions, give me a call. The phones are open right now, and we'll take your call. In the meantime, as we wait for the call, there's other things that I had wanted to comment about. And first of all, I'd like to expand with regards to discussions that was had at Halinao-Pono. Very briefly, and many of you who are longtime listeners of this program is familiar with Halinao-Pono as being the mental health, the community mental health center out in Waianae. We have had some controversies in the past, and or some conflicts in the past, and we continue to maintain our position about the best type of health services is or are services that give appropriate consideration to the culture and to the social complexities of the people in that community and where they come from. I had been asked, not only myself, but Puanani, my wife, and I had been asked to share some of our feelings, our thoughts with regards to new teachers coming into Hawaii, and what would be our comments with regards to their coming in and teaching our children. This was about a month, maybe at the most 2 months ago, and we have been asked on a yearly basis to address and try to assist in the acculturation of people coming from different parts of America as they come into Hawaii. Many of them coming into the schools in the Waianae Nanakuli area, but not limited to that. Some of them are going out to schools in other communities on Oahu and within Hawaii. So this is not a new project or a new endeavor for us. And normally when this happens, they will come to Halinao Pono, and both of us, or at times if Puanani is not available, I will address the group by myself or ask other people to come in and also address the group. In this particular, well, in the earlier period, we addressed teachers, and this was about 2 months ago. And Puanani, one of her highlights was always to teach gift-based rather than trying to make the child become or conform to your way of thinking. You have to understand the child and teach to the child's gift. And she tells her stories, of course, much more effectively than I do, so I will not even attempt to do it. And one day we can have her come on and share her words more directly with you. For me, I take other approaches to addressing them, and based on those approaches, especially with regards to the idea of Teach for America, and what is this all about, and why do you teach, and what do you teach, and is it really for America? Is that with an anticipation that this Hawaii is America, and what is the underlying root word America? Where does that come from? And what about Hawaii? And why do we try to merge the two? Is that not part of the colonial mentality that tries to extend the American empire over Hawaii? And is the Teach for America project merely an extension of empire, and these teachers themselves are being used as agents for the colonization attempt? And all of that can be explored by asking who is doing the teaching, who are you teaching to, what are the expectations of those people to whom you are teaching, what are you teaching, and those kinds of stuff. And so it got some interest among the teachers. Some of them commented that after all of these weeks of training here in Hawaii, it's about time somebody really hit the nail on its head and started talking about these kinds of issues that they had not heard previously. And so we got into quite an invigorating discussion over those issues. From that, the core group had one or two of the core group had been at this gathering, and she is essentially the organizer of this session of bringing people, or bringing these new teachers to different people, I guess. Anyway, she went back and spoke with others, and so when other people more or also central to the core group, and there were about 20 of them, and they came from various parts of America, and I'm talking about the continental United States, just so that there is no misunderstanding as to my use of that term in this case. And so they joined us in Waianae, and we had another discussion. Essentially, the question of education is one of behavior. How does a student behave such that his behavior will push him or elevate him or her to a higher level of understanding, a higher level of developing tactics and techniques of learning skills and things like that. But it all delves down, I guess, to behavior. And working at Halinao Pono and being engaged in discussions both on this radio program and discussions like this with people from different areas, either university or in the community, I've developed a particular analytical framework in which I shared with the people who had joined us in our discussion. And in that analytical framework, I use the triangle, which I've used even here in our discussions here. The triangle in which you have your points A, point B, and point C on the triangle. So if we put B at the top of the triangle and A being on the left lower corner and C being on the right lower corner, there you have your ABC triangle. And out of social science or peace studies, as expressed by Johan Galtung, he drew at point B the point we call behavior, and he split that B into direct behavior and indirect behavior. And oftentimes we look at the very top of that triangle, looking at direct behavior as what we are trying to address and alter or modify. And so when it gets out of control, in order to modify it, we either punish or reward the behavior itself. And when you have limited funds, then it tends more towards a punishment side. So you create institutions such as prisons or Job Corps or other institutions to try to more forcefully modify behavior. The indirect behavior is not the so obvious. It's not the shooting or the stabbing or the physical fighting, but it may be the discriminatory practices, the harassment that one gets because of one's sex or sexual choices, or because of one's race or religion or whatever it is, one's height or one's weight, discriminatory practices. And beyond those physical aspects, it may be because of one's belief system. But those themselves are behavior that oftentimes pushes an individual to respond in a direct behavior, which is to strike out or to take some action or to simply leave the school, and then said to be a truant or plain hooky or whatever the case may be. But the view of this triangle is stuck on point B rather than looking at the whole triangle, because you also have point A and point C to that triangle. And what some people can do is draw a line that is parallel to the line that is defined by point A and point C at the bottom of the triangle, and place this line sort of in the center of the triangle, splitting point B from the line A and C. And with this line that cuts through the triangle, they call this the visibility-invisibility line. Whatever is above the line is visible, that is point B, direct behavior. And whatever is below the line is invisible to the not necessarily naked eye, but the uninformed eye. And so people do not explore what are the causes of point B, which is generated by point A and point C. Point A being the point of attitudes, awareness, appreciation, assumptions that an individual or a society makes. And because of these attitudes, it may be a religious belief, or it may be a philosophical belief, or some other deep-seated, deep culture within the individual and within the society that he comes from, or not necessarily the same deep culture, that arises and gives force or gives content or substance to the belief system, and it comes out in B. Some interpretation of one's religion, either most prominent today, people are always looking at the Islamic religion, and so they tag the religion for the terrorist acts of an individual, and so they look at behavior and they try to tie it to a religion. Another religion would be the Christian religion and the extremism that is brought about in the religion and the religious fervor that one speaks of when one decides that they're going to attack another nation. So in that case, they bring not the individual terroristic activities, but they bring the national terroristic activities. So they carpet bomb, they do these invasive actions, or they use drone planes to very secretly, very silently crossing over borders and then firing on individuals. So these are eruptions that come out of point A that affect point B. But if we only look at point B, then we're not really understanding, appreciating, or able to change behaviors because we have eliminated from our sight point A. On the other side of that AC line is what is sometimes called conditions. Other times it's also called contradictions. And so you have conditions in which your attitudes develop. Conditions such as extreme cold or extreme heat, or what is that going through much of America today, turning it into a dust bowl, this extreme heat that is going on there. Other conditions may be in a community, conditions of unemployment, conditions of very poor educational system, conditions of oppression, of colonization, of taking over and demeaning a people who had been there for centuries, taking away their language, their culture, their heroes, their history, and imposing a different language, a different culture, a different names of heroes, different history. These are all conditions, and as the conditions are formed, they also have a generating force so that it pushes up to point B and it affects behavior and changes at point B. In other words, you cannot really understand point B and cannot make any changes at your point B in behavior unless you also appreciate point A and point C. Now, every individual carries with them their particular ABC triangle, because we all have deep-seated feelings, we all have assumptions and expectations of what other people, how other people should behave. We have experiences of deep culture. We also come from different conditions, and so we have certain behaviors that promoted, let's say, higher education, hard work, and other values. And so we walk around with our particular triangle. If you come from Chicago, if you come from New York, if you come from Idaho, if you come from Texas, your triangle is based on your particular assumptions and conditions or contradictions, and so you have particular behavior. Now, when you apply those triangles, your expectation, your baggage or luggage as you come to Hawaii, and begin to unravel it, or not unravel it, but unpack it into the classrooms upon others who have their own ABC triangle. And especially when the triangles do not meet, what do you have? You have oppression, you have suppression, you have domination, especially with teachers over students. And you have this conflict. You may call it teaching for America. You may call it by whatever name you have. You may also try to justify it by your good intentions. But have you taken the time to really investigate who you are teaching? What are their values? What are their conditions? What are their deep cultures? Okay, let's take a break for now.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii hope o ka aina Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala anunu me ka paka Pane mai Hawaii i moku o ke ave Koku ana honoa o Pilani Ka ko'o mai kaua i o mano Pa'aku me ke one o ka kuhi hewa Aolea e kau i ka pulima Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi Ho'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa I ka pono sibila a o ke kana